What's up, Fortnite fam? Welcome back to the pre-show heading into week number 5 of the FNCS. You guys know me, I am Zeke. We're hanging out with Sundown.
What's up, everyone?
Balla TW.
Hey.
ShyoWager.
Hello.
And special guest, MonsterDFace.
What's up?
Gentlemen, welcome all to the show. We have quite a bit to talk about today, and I can't wait to get started, so let's do this. So the first thing I wanted to go ahead and talk about is top 8 versus consistency. There's obviously 2 ways to qualify going into the finals and those heats. You can either place in top 8 or top 4 in your region, or if you're racking up those FNCS points, you can potentially make it into heats that way. So guys, who is maybe like a couple of trios that you think haven't quite hit top 8, but you fully expect to see heading into the heats?
So honestly, rather than calling out kind of specific trios right here, the one thing I want to focus on is it's all about just getting there. A lot of the players seem to have kind of tunneled a little bit on not getting a top 8 or a top 4 or instant qualification in there. But basically every trio who's stuck together and played consistently well is going to get in through your FNCS and your championship points. So it seems odd to me that people are stressing so much in terms of the top 8 and top 4 when we've seen historically the heats are such a different beast than these full kind of open competitions, right? When you're in there and when you're with a set group and you know where people are going, you can kind of do a little bit more analysis. We see vastly different results than what the leaderboard looks like. So honestly, I'm a little upset with the players' mental game and their mentality and how many have kind of broken down their trios just because they haven't gotten a top 8 spot or they're not there, when they literally would have had the points had they just played together all 5 of the weeks. Like, I don't know. It's kind of confusing to me.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that there's a finals at the end of this, and the finals is drastically different than the qualifiers in terms of how you have to play them, who you're up against. You're up against the best of the best throughout the entire competition. So I think it kind of makes sense on the other side that people are stressing those top 8s, those top 4s to make the best trio possible going into stage number 2, into the heats and into the finals. Because you see a lot of times players who are really good at this open qualifier format aren't necessarily doing the best. I'll use the example of Mitro Mongol. Even though they played very well at World Cup towards the end, they were struggling. And that's because their playstyle doesn't necessarily tend, when they're together, to a final customs where it's 100 of the best players, whereas in the open qualifiers, they can slay out as best as they can, and that's what they're good at.
Doesn't that kind of counter your own point there? Because you're saying the people who are on the top during the leaderboards have been running through. Once you get into these like kind of tighter lobbies, then your ability to kind of W key and run over other players doesn't matter as much. So then shouldn't it just be the focus on getting to the heats and then getting the opportunity? Because like my one prime example would be the Tohaj, Balla EU, and Caxi trio. They've played together, been top 5 every single time. But I think if you put them into kind of a stacked lobby, I think they'll be fine in the first round of heats. I think that group, even though they're in second place right now in overall FNCS points, I don't see them as the second best team out of Europe, and I don't see them placing second if they get all the way to that final round. So.
Right, I think there's a difference between people who are very good at open qualifiers and whatever. So it's not, they still need to qualify, remember. So if they break up their trio, they still need to hit top 8 and top 4. Even though they might not be the best of that format because they broke up their trio. And then the whole focus for them is who's the best. I think of Tfue, Cloaksy, and Tom, specifically 72 Hours. They broke up because they don't really think that they're going to be as good as possible towards the end.
I think that people are focusing a little bit too much on the results aspect of everything and forgetting about the whole process. Like, yeah, consistency points exist for like a reason in terms of like actually learning a lot about the game with your trio, right? Like if you stick with the same 5, people are just so focused on how many points they can get, not actually how they're playing, not actually, you know, what they're learning game to game, meta shift to meta shift. It's always just more about finding the best type of results rather than just practicing, which is why these trios that are sticking together, I think, will do a lot better than even anyone who's trying to prep for finals or grand finals, because they're not learning the same type of lessons that everyone else gets to learn in these 5 weeks.
And Monster, for you specifically, I mean, you've kind of been on the outside looking in, keeping up with these trios as they've gone forward. I mean, this is such a great point, right? If you can stick with a trio, you can learn your trios, your other 2 partners' patterns, right, in play and their thinking and how they're going to rotate, and you can work out these strategies. But with these trios, like Shai's saying, they're all splitting up and they're all coming together and shaking things up. do you think they're going to have a disadvantage heading into the heats? Do you think they might have some kind of advantage because maybe people aren't quite ready to handle that trio and their current power level? Like, what do you think?
So this is the first time that we've seen finally a format that rewards consistency. And I think this is a learning experience for a lot of our competitors, where you've had a lot of people go for beginner's luck, kind of, you break up, you find a new duo and you just go for it and you find your instant qualification. Now that people have to stick together, I think the nerves are a little high, and they're seeing that there's a lot more pressure involved when you make that commitment early on, and you kind of have to stick it all the way through. So the teams that are sticking together, they are going to gain invaluable experience, if you ask me. And I think they'll be the ones that will perform best when, pressure's on, because a lot of people can, like we just said, get that beginner's luck where, a lot of people like to gloat that, hey, we got top 5. We just played only one weekend together. Yeah, it could have just been luck, right? Like 3 extremely talented players, things just go your way. I think the teams that stay with one another and, rock out all the way through to the end are going to for sure see better results.
And I think there's 2 teams that in NAE specifically who come to mind, the Click, Spades, and Crims trio, who's stuck together. So we'll see how they go week 5, but then also Bucky, Animal, and Aspect, who had a slow rise up to week number 3, and then they fell off a little bit in week 4. But that's a team who does exactly what Monster and Shyo are saying and really learn every single time they play.
Now let's talk about 1030. In this current update, Greasy Grove and Moisty Palms are most recent additions to the game. Both with these POIs are going to bring a little bit different things to the game. So in Moisty Palms, you're going to be able to crouch and become a prop. If you ADS, it lets you lock in place. You can kind of look around, get yourself a nice target, and pick them off. And then on the other side, Greasy Grove, there's actually no Durburger there. Now, there is a taco shop, and every so often, it becomes taco time where everyone gets to dance, regenerate HP, and all around just have a great time. I mean, I love tacos, I love spicy food. Why not put them together and share with the world?
I mean, I know you certainly love taco time, but you won't catch me near either of those POIs. One, I'm not a fan of landing actually at POIs in and of themselves in a competitive sense. I prefer either split dropping in trios and like making sure you kind of get a good coverage, or tight team dropping in kind of like a spot where you're able to get rotation and move around. That being said, there's some interesting gameplay mechanics that can end up coming out. The one thing I'm curious for is whether or not people are going to now avoid those drop spots intentionally, because we know that Paradise Palms previously was a huge drop spot. Pandora in the past week, like a lot of people were going towards that area. So I'm going to see if kind of the prop in Moisty Palms kind of scares some people away from it, because I know I wouldn't be dropping there.
I think this is going to be a shift from a lot of different places to more people at retail. I think there's just going to be more people landing retail now, because Paradise Palms, like Sundown said, was huge in terms of loot potential. But because of that, those players are hungry for loot. They want to drop somewhere where it can be very loot heavy. Speaking of Bugga specifically, they love that spot. And I think they're just going to get pushed over to retail, which is one of the other loot heavy spots. And in fact, one of the best loot heavy spots. So we're going to see a lot more teams dropping at retail. That's my prediction.
Part of me disagrees. I got to play in taco time today, and it was actually really, really good in the sense that it's not as, disruptive as you might think. If only one team, kind of gets there, they can free loot, and the tacos give out a lot of health. Plus, with the speed movement, you can loot very quickly, although you get that little bit of disruption from taco time. So I think Greasy Grove is high-key a decent spot. When you get to play it and you kind of feel the rhythm out, it's not as disruptive as you might think.
I like that. Feel the rhythm out. I like it.
The next big thing to come with 1030 is the unvaulting of the Tactical SMG. This remnant of the past, I'm so happy to have back. One of my favorite weapons back in early seasons of Fortnite. Now we get to have it back, and now we get to terrorize everyone else.
My take on the TAC SMG, I kind of feel like it's a minigun to go laser beam. It's really fast to bring out, reload, move with on the go, combo with a pump shotgun as well. Now that the combats are vaulted, everyone's looking for an answer after they shoot their first big damage shot. So I think this is going to be the high priority weapon to take. The burst leaving doesn't kind of make anyone miss anything too much. It wasn't really being picked up in comp that much, even with the turbo build change earlier. But now it's like, I think it's a high priority weapon early, mid, and end game.
I'm gonna disagree
I was
with
gonna
you.
say.
With the combat vaulting, I've seen pretty much everyone rocking the burst SMG as a secondary. Plus, with the wall replace changes, like you're pretty much guaranteed to get at least one of those bullets from a burst through a wall. And then particularly now you talk about like the pump into a swap. The burst is the strongest single target swap weapon that's not a sniper rifle. So like very commonly we were seeing if somebody wasn't being kind of defunct into their trio as the minigun or the rifle guy, the people who were box fighting were carrying the pump into a burst with occasionally the pump in the silent SMG as well, but more often than not it was the burst, and I'm personally going to miss the burst SMG. While the attack I think gives you a lot more options in terms of the slightly mid to short range combat and some like a little more laser potential when holding high ground, I think you lose a lot of either initial fight pressure and also burst capability against an opponent. Like if you hit somebody with a burst SMG shot, most of the time you're getting 2 bodies and a headshot or 3 body shots. That's 60 plus damage. That's really fast for the rate of fire. So I'm curious to see now what happens in terms of the box fighting meta when pump swap is so important and now the most effective swap weapon has been taken away.
I think the burst SMG leaving helps early game a lot for people who have great aim, and then the TAC SMG, I think it's going to be good like you guys are saying, but I don't think it shakes anything up, right? It's still just going to be a swap weapon that everybody is used to.
I think the TAC SMG is going to become a favorite. I know we're currently in a pump AR meta, but pump TAC SMG might be a new favorite. It brings me back to the Tempo days when he was at the top of the food chain. He was a huge advocate and fan of the TAC SMG. I think people are going to see why it was shining back then and why it's going to shine now that the player pool, just as skill-wise, has gotten so much better.
Well, guys, that wraps up the pre-show. Again, thank you to everyone that joined us. Sundown, Balla TW, MonsterDFace, ShyoWager. It's been great having you guys. If you're competing this weekend, best of luck. This is your final opportunity to qualify for the heats. And as always, guys, we'll see you on the battle bus.
Beep, beep.